How you doing? Hi, Dominic and Neff and Pepsi. Hi, Pepsi. How you guys doing today? Um, I'm the other day I had I guess it was what's today, Saturday? Yeah, yesterday I had a video on sort of an entry level for exceptional horology. And I was asked the very reasonable question by the rancher, well, what do you mean by by exceptional horology? And I thought, well, this might be a good time to look at it. I think to a large extent, the whole concept of high horology was more of a marketing thing. And what I thought would be a good idea to look at today is, what are we talking about with exceptional horology? And let me go back to um, Breguet. Between 1980 and I think about 1987, 88, right in there, uh, two really exceptional watchmakers, primarily um Daniel Roth and Michel Parmigiani. I didn't realize until recently that Parmigiani was involved in what amounted to the entire uh, renaissance or sort of rebirth of Breguet. Breguet had sort of dwindled down into next to nothing as far as horology was concerned. And the Chomet brothers hired both, um, gonna sneeze in a second, hired both Daniel Roth and Michel Parmigiani to help them create some special watches. And then in 1999, they were bought by Swatch, and a few years later, I don't know when exactly they started. I know that Patek Philippe started in about 2009 and putting uh, silicon hairsprings in their watches. Now, here's the thing, I guess, that one might want to quibble about, and that would be, our silicon hairsprings really something that we should sort of dismiss, as I do, as having anything to do with high horology, let alone exceptional horology. And let me back up just a little on that. When you have a brand like Patek Philippe saying, "Okay, we're gonna put all of our hairsprings from now on are going to be silicon," and the people at Geneva Seal said, "Okay, but you're not going to get the Geneva Seal anymore because we sort of would prefer you not to have silicon in your watches." Now, off we go to the races in terms of an argument, in terms of what is what. And so let me sort of use that as a starting point. Let me see. Oh, good grief! A bunch of other people came. There he is, the rancher, Javi, John. Hi, John. Tuna, good to see you. Alexander, hey, homeboy. Neff, Koji, a football fan. uh, John, Big Sal. Good to see all you guys. Hi, Patsy. Um, so anyway, so going back to that, um, I this is not a matter of snob appeal. Okay, I think in order to really understand and appreciate exceptional horology, we've got to look at something about a watch that has something to do with constant force. I know that is may not be important to everybody. Well, one of the things that they claim about, and it's true about silicon hairsprings, is that silicon hairsprings don't have all of the variation that you get with heat and cold, and certainly they have no effect on magnetic fields, which we're surrounded by, and that's a good thing. I'm not saying it's not, but so is a smartwatch, and so way long ago has been a quartz watch. And quartz watches were more accurate, more everything, and you can pile all kinds of other functionality into them without a lot of extra expense. With a smartwatch, it's even more so. So if you want to look at progress and timekeeping, I think that would be the place to look. And while at the same time, if you're interested in traditional mechanical watchmaking, I think the real core to the whole thing is trying to understand and improve on constant force. Now, what are some examples of good constant force with hairsprings that aren't silicon? Well, I think one of the best examples really is Rolex. Rolex was part of this triumvirate, I guess, of between Swatch and Patek Philippe and themselves and Rolex, and they all went and they invested in silicon hairsprings. They got the silicon hairsprings, and Rolex said, "No, we're going to keep our parachrome hairsprings in the men's watches." There are a few of the other ones. Well, why did they do that? I mean, because they knew that they weren't going to have as many, say, problems with a silicon hairspring as they would with the parachrome ones. The parachrome ones are really excellent, by the way. And also, too, if you look at H. Moser's Strawman hairsprings, to me, the funny thing about that, all of these tip-top watchmakers um, use it, but we don't know exactly who they are, with one exception, and that's MB&F. So you have people who have to do a whole lot of work, but once a something like a silicon hairspring and certain escapement elements are put in there, it's like, well, worries are over. We don't have to worry about that. But I don't see them putting in anything else that goes toward constant force. Now, when they start putting in parallel barrels, when they have a remontoir d'égalité, but you're not seeing that coming from these companies such as Breguet, who's owned by Swatch, nor are you seeing it by Patek Philippe, at least that I can see. On the other hand, before Marco Lang left Langenheim, he had all of those things. He had um, a remontoir égalité. He had double barrels and parallel. He had all kinds of interesting horological features to it. And now in his own company, which is he's just starting and charging everyone what the going rate is for one of his watches, which is in the $100,000 range and north of that. So and that was what we saw in looking at a number of the quote entry level. Somebody said that talking about entry level for exceptional horology was banal. He said, "How can you? What's entry level about that?" And of course, there's a good point in that when you say, "Well, I've sort of you can get a Wooten Lannen for only $70,000." When you look around and they have a friend of mine had one made for 250,000. So these things, and plus the fact that if you look at the art world, man, I don't know if any of you collect art or buy art, but man, I tell you, it's just crazy expensive, just nutsy expensive. And so, that's comparatively, I think that watches are a heck of a lot better deal. I was looking at I have my wife and I got a couple Matisse prints. Okay, that's a Matisse prints that were signed, Matisse prints that we got in Paris a number of years ago, and we could afford them. I mean, because they were prints. Well, apparently now I guess people think that even the signature on a print is worth something. But when you compare what it takes to make a print and what it takes to make a watch, especially one with some kind of feature in it that's makes it exceptional, you're talking, really worlds of difference. Because Andy Warhol and Matisse, for that matter, Picasso, a lot of these things are simply, simple charcoal drawings and whoop whoop whoop, and they're done. And they say, well, these guys are really talented. So are the watchmakers, and they have a lot more complex stuff to deal with. Okay, so let's see what you've got to say about how are we going to approach uh, how are we going to approach this whole thing? Hi, Pine Baron. I'm sorry. Injudrit, how are you? How are things going? Let's see who is Stoneful Steve. How you doing? Licks. Um, Constant force and friction most affect accuracy, other than poor design. Yeah, yeah. Uh, Dominic, those are important things. Hi, Jeffrey. Um, I I put on one of my watches that I got because I didn't know any better at the time I got it. All right, I got this. I don't know. Got a time play. It's about 7 years ago or so. I got this watch. Anyway, it's an FP Journe Resonance, and the reason I got it, I became fascinated with the whole phenomena of resonance, and read the stuff by his name is Javier, I think, and then how some of the work that Abraham Breguet did, and then all of the work that F.P. Journe did, and it just to me that was the most interesting thing in the world, and it helped me understand about resonance. Most resonance, by the way, is not a friend of watches. Resonance happens all around us, all around our watches. And what the resonance watches do is that they create their own resonance, which in effect keeps out the other resonance that you don't want. So to me, that was like, took me a while to learn that later on. But the point of it is that they were dealing with something that interfered with good timekeeping uh, and constant force. Okay, let's see what you guys have. Hey, Jeffrey, what's up? Eugene, how are you? Hi, Joof Magoof. uh, okay, resonance can make a watch accurate and also uh, take out an entire bridge. Yes, that's true. It can. That's a good point, Neff. Resonance is a huge force. If you want to learn about resonance, this is what I would suggest doing on YouTube. They got these guys. They'll have these some kind of string or some kind of suspension, and then I'll have a weight on the end, and then they take them back, and they'll release one, and it's going back and forth like this, and then they release the other, and it's going back, and pretty soon they're both going together like that. It's just really an amazing feature. Now, this was recognized, and I hope I have the name. I'll probably mispronounce it because it was French. Janvier, and what he did was that he was able to take two pendulums and a big clock and put them in resonance. And so here are these big old pendulums going back and forth, creating a resonance between the two clocks, a resonance clock. And that was one that Breguet took and did some things with. I think John Harrison may have also. Okay, John. Hey, John. Friction has been dealt with synthetic ruby and lubricants. Poor design has been in more watches than anything. To apply good design is time and money consuming, which is only high horology. Yeah, I think. I mean, high horology. There's high horology, and they do take care of things like good finishing and things like that. In fact, that's one of the emphasis, and they include precious metals and a few things like that. But I think I still see that more as a marketing feature than anything else, and I don't see the addressing of the whole issue of constant force. I mean, there's the foundation of what's it called? Foundation of high horology, something like that, and they define high horology, and they have all these categories and everything. And then you look at who started it, and it was a Richemont group. Okay, so you're like, okay, they're going to define high horology and then charge us a lot of money for those with it. I wonder how the Harbrings make their simple watches so accurate. That interests me. Doing more with less. Yeah, me too. Now that blasted Harbring 2 Felix of mine. Look at it, and there is simply good watchmaking. I can't. I mean, the finishing is adequate. All right, nothing special. They got all this little pieces of metal that come off. They could have done it with a vacuum cleaner for all I know. But I mean, it's an okay. But man, that thing is accurate. And I was just somebody was asking me the other day about it, and he had a new one, and I think he said he got a 4 second uh, something with it, and was worried. And I looked at mine over the years, and it's kept extremely good. I said, Okay, so in the exceptional part, I think, is the skill that it takes to get a certain thing done. Now, there's there are two ways to do it. Okay, that I see. I got something in my eye. Um, there are two ways that I can see of doing this that you have to deal with. One is just figuring out how to put whatever mechanism you want to put in it, and then figure out how you can mass produce it. Okay. Usually, it doesn't seem to work out very well. And so when you start making watches of more than a few, I don't know, a few that you're not doing by hand, you run in, it just doesn't make sense to do it. In other words, the technology that you need for mass production with these kinds things like a remontoir egalite are just nuts expensive. This was why I was very surprised to see that MB&F came out with uh, a double hairspring. And then I read on and it said, oh, the double hairspring is by H. Moser, which was surprising too, because yes, they did have the technology, but it was very expensive to produce. And so they cut it out. And but then when you look at the price of an MB&F as an entry level at 53,000 bucks, you figure that's how they solved the problem. They just had to charge a lot more for it. And so I think that other things that do that, I mean, why are so few double barrels in parallel when they do work as keeping more constant force? Yes, the ones in serial will make your watch run longer before you have to rewind it. I don't know. What are some other things? Let's see what you got. Hey, Eugene, for a brand new Wooten Lennon. Oh, wait. Don't tell me. Venga. A guy today sent me a letter and say, this is how you pronounce Venge, and it's something like Venga or something really cool name. I forgot it already, but it's no small thing. Okay. Costing US 84,000. Is that a fair price? Please bear in mind it's no complication. It only shows the time. That's another thing. Eugene, I'm glad you brought that up. There are complications that Dave Letterman used to call stupid dog tricks. Okay, so you got a watch, and it shows you it's got dual time, or it's got this, or it's got that. Those are added complications that are fairly common, like something as simple as adding another hand for a dual time watch, for what they call a GMT watch. Uh, Doing something like that, not that difficult, but I mean, it takes something more than nothing to do it. Okay, uh, but same thing with the chronograph. Most chronographs, they simply slap on an existing one. And where you see the really exceptional horology would be like in the Agograph one, which was like when I first read the review of that, I think it was in Quill and Pad. They had this, they were like, you know, they had their mouth open, like, ah, they did that. And they, like nobody thought of that, or nobody sort of conceived of it that way. And so you have any kind of watch movement by Jean-Marc Viderec, and this is what he's been known for throughout his career, as coming up with these elegant solutions. And usually the elegance lies in certain simplicities. So you know, there's that. The what's it called? The Fusee and Chain would be another one that they're trying to smooth things out. And of course, those things you end up with a very thick watch, and very few watches still have them. I think All Longa has them. But these are the kinds of things I think that are really fun to look at. I'll tell you another place too, AHCI, the independent groups. You look at the stuff that those guys have, and that's another source of it. Okay, let's see what else you got. Hi, Stephen Brown. Am I missing something? But isn't the weight on my tall cock a constant force? I don't know. It might be. I'm not sure. I mean, you mean in terms of the pendulum? Or I'm not sure what you're talking about. Hi, Randy. Um, I think Moser, Chopek, and Beauvais are great examples of exceptional horology with great price bracket. Yeah, I agree with you on Moser. I like Chopek, but don't aren't Chopek's, well, it depends on how you look at it. Aren't Chopek movements is simply Crenode movements, and now Crenode is by who is it? By Mojon, and whether he is doing the movements or simply they're coming off the shelf Crenode, I don't know. But that would be important to find out about Chopek. As far as let me see. Um, what was the other one? Beauvais. Yeah, Beauvais did something very interesting. I'm not sure. I have a Beauvais, and in fact, I have two of them. And the odd thing is that the Beauvais that is in a way far more interesting is my one from, was a new old stock from like 1939, 1940, which is a mono Rattrapant. And that's interesting, but that's in a Valjoux 84 movement. The modern ones from Beauvais, what Beauvais did, or Pascal Raffi did, is that he bought this movement company, actually a group of different ones deal with movement, and renamed it Demier. And so his, like, H. Moser has precision engineering, Beauvais has Demier. Now, what they have done in terms of constant force, I'm not sure. I do know they had this one watch that won the Aiguille d'Or, the grand prize a few years ago, and but I'm not sure exactly what they had in there that, in terms of constant force or in terms of making it better. They're the one clue that I have that Beauvais does really incredibly good stuff was that the movement in my 1930 is exactly fitting almost to the case. Now that's no great shakes, but what it appears though is that they're trying to bring a lot of things together that they all mesh together because they were made for each other, as opposed to, here we got case A off of this shelf and movement B off of this shelf, and they happen to fit, so we'll slap them together. Um, I don't know. I think both Chopek and Beauvais are ones that may exactly be ways to sort of slip in the side door, so to speak. Uh, the theory of horology, John, that sounds good. Uh, hey, Langa one. Let's see. Hi, Artie. Uh, let's see. I think this is the golden age for independent watchmakers. uh, Past masters like George Daniels and even Daniel Roth paved the way. Daniel Roth is still alive. Let me tell you, I get. He looks like he's dead sometimes, but he's still alive, and he's making these incredible tourbillon watches. That's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to screw around with anything else. So he says he's got people lined up out his door that will, want one of his watches and are willing to pay top price. So he's still alive. That's important to me because I'm older than he is. um, I don't know that Daniel Roth was so much as a business failure. Most, I guess you might consider that. But see, the thing of it was is that the companies that owned stuff that Daniel Roth did were failures. You take, for example, what Daniel Roth did with Breguet back in the 80s, and then the failure was the Chomet brothers when they tried to corner the diamond market. It went belly up and were arrested. I don't think they ended up actually doing any time, but they probably deserved to. Um, Undersized movements is like a ripoff. Um, well, it can be undersized movement. Like I had this beautiful El Leroy, great big old one, and a friend of mine is a watchmaker. Uh, Took it apart, and inside there was this little bitty Pazoo 7001. He said he didn't didn't look like the El Leroy had put all of their name and everything on the on the plates and on the rotor. I want to no, not the rotor. 7001 doesn't have a rotor, but on the plates that they had that. How are Armand Strom watches compared to accept? I think that some Armand Strom watches do have uh some exceptional horology, and they may be a good example of a good sort of entry. I mean, given even for the high prices that they charge, they may be a good one because they do have that constant force feature, and I think the one they have uses a Maltese cross. Um, what I think it's them that have this, and what they're doing essentially is that they're only using the middle part of the mainspring that has a constant amount of force, whereas the initial force is either low or high, I forgot which, and then near the end it starts speeding up. Sort of like a wind up toy, you wind it up and it goes, and then at some point it either goes zoop or it goes. And I think that's how they address the problem. But Arm and Strom, I think I'm glad you brought that up. I think they're a very special one. Some of the other ones that people don't really think about or know too much about are people like Strayer. What's his first name? Something like something Strayer, and his stuff is great. So I thought, oh boy, nobody knows about him. I thought I'd go see if I can find some good deal. Apparently, they did know about him. Um, Okay, I like Arm& and Son, but they are really big. Yeah, yes, that could be a problem. Okay, I see it's frying pan time, you guys. Thank you. Let me just end with one thing. This is a watch I love talking about, but I probably not everybody. This is my Dandy Arty, my Chaumet Dandy Arty, and in it, I what I think is some really good exceptional horology, and that is that it has two Agonais gears in it for sending a nice continuous flow of power from the center to this eccentric, what is on one of their other ones, a second hand. Here is the Ferris wheel, but that and it has double ones of that. But the rest of the watch is an ETA, and so I think you can sort of find certain exceptional horology. And the reason that they use the agonist is because it has this sort of linking gear in it so that you don't end up with all of the hesitations and junk you'll see this in second hands when you have them small seconds away from the center. they'll you'll see this sometimes, whereas what they have here, they have this constant force. So you can find constant force in unusual places. Okay. All right. Now, what I want to do this afternoon, I want to talk about this in terms of let's find out how we can affordably get our mitts on some of this exceptional horology. Hint, hint. Anyway, take care. Thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you later.